Hello MennoNerds, this is Micael and I want to talk about communion as a real meal. About a year ago, my friend and house church pioneer Richard Cruz wrote a book that you can't read, but I can. It's called Dinner with Jesus. And he proposes this quite radical idea that communion really isn't a snack. It's a real meal, and bread and wine aren't necessary. Whenever Christians eat whatever together, and they do so in remembrance of Jesus and in His presence, that's the communion right there. You don't need certain ingredients, you just need a meal, and you need Christians, and you of course need the Holy Spirit, who is always with you. His arguments for this are, for example, the original meal that Jesus and His disciples ate together when Jesus took the bread and the wine was a meal. It wasn't just bread and wine, it contained other stuff as well, such as lamb and other things. And he points to the fact that in Jewish and ancient culture, bread was the thing that introduced the meal, the first thing you ate, and wine was the thing that you finished with. So bread and wine aren't just the only things that you are supposed to consume, it is sort of the frame describing a whole meal. He also argues that when Paul talks about communion in 1 Corinthians especially, he uses a word which usually signifies a dinner. So it's more than just a snack, it's more than just a little bread and wine. This book received a lot of both praise and criticism when it came out. Obviously, it is a radical thought to think that bread and wine aren't necessary. I think it's more easier to accept the idea that bread and wine aren't the only things that you need to include in communion. You can have some hummus on that bread, you can have a little bit of salad or fruit beside. It won't hurt the meal at all. It would in fact be probably more similar to the original Jesus meal that Jesus himself introduced. There are also some church historical evidence that communion and the agape meal, which was a more fleshed out meal that included the poor and was very popular in ancient church history, used to be the same meal. And there could be arguments both for and against that, but I think the arguments for are better. I don't see why you would separate them from the beginning. When the agape meal is being described in the earliest documents, I think it's evident that it isn't a clear distinction between agape and communion. So what do we do with this? This is obviously not the same discussion that Paul introduced about the how Christ is present in the communion. I think those different theories are compatible with this. This is more about how communion should be like practically, and I think that it would be more accessible to people. When I was in South Africa, I remember rejoicing in the fact that they didn't have just church coffee, they have church lunches quite often. And in poor areas that was of course very, very good and celebrated. The pastor invited all the church members for lunch every single Sunday. And it's something with a real meal that obviously is better and healthier and I think more valuable than just a little snack. Thank you for watching. God bless you.